Our guest tonight has quite the resume, 14 worldwide wins, 3-time NWC Team of the Year. He's also the 2018 NWT Champion. Last year, he wrapped it up with the 2025 NTC Championship. We're going to talk about that, and he's got over 50 top 10s. Mad Max Wilson. Max, what's up, dude?
How's it going, buddy? How's it going?
Good. Welcome to the show, man.
Hey, thanks for having me. Glad I could get on.
Dude, look at that backdrop.
Yeah. It's good memories.
Good memories. Lots of them. It's a lot of time on the water. Tonight we're going to go through like kind of timeline, how you got into fishing, a little bit of your upbringing. But obviously we want to talk about the good stuff, which is the tournament winnings, your life as a tournament fisherman, and kind of what it takes to do it like you do. We talked earlier and you're talking, it's what you do all the time, and every tournament blends into the next one. But let's start with your upbringing. Where'd you grow up?
I grew up down in southeastern Wisconsin, over by like Waukesha, Delafield area. I lived there until I graduated high school, and then I joined the Marine Corps right out of high school. Then when I got home from the Marines, I moved up to Lamira, and then shortly after I moved over to Campbellsport, where I live now.
Okay. What was your childhood like? I mean, pretty good childhood. You got siblings?
No. That's the one thing I always laugh whenever, you always see the idiotic comments, oh, mommy and daddy, all this bullshit that you hear. But, I had a interesting childhood, not to get into it too far, but, there was a lot of, there was a lot of great things. Like I have the best mom in the whole wide world. She is an absolute saint, and, did everything for me and my sister. And, me and my dad, we had up and down, a lot more downs. But, there was a lot of challenges that, really, really kind of shaped into who I am today. And a lot of it I carried from growing up. There was a lot of really, really, really crappy moments that, I held on to for a long time. And, once I started talking about my mental health and stuff like that, that was where a lot of it stemmed from, was growing up. And so that's why I always laugh when everyone's like, oh, mommy and daddy, or all this, all the other stupid. I'm sure you'll see it today with the, my biggest fans that are be in the comments. But, it had some moments where, it was somewhat normal. I grew up suburban, in suburbia, lived right by my high school, my elementary school. So I had a lot of friends in the area. So I just spent a lot of time out of the house, exploring, and that's where fishing kind of became my sanctuary. Yeah. It got me out and about, got me doing a lot of, kept me out of trouble, a lot of, growing up, how do I put this, growing up in the environment that I found myself into, sometimes I found myself friends with a lot of people that, also struggled at home, and a lot of them took a lot of different life paths than me, and fishing kept me out of a lot of the trouble that a lot of my friends from, growing up found themselves in, so fishing was always kind of that kept me on the straight and narrow line. And that's why fishing became so central to me. It was because that was what kept me going day in, day out when things got really, really tough growing up, and at home. That was what got me out of there, kept my head clear, and kept myself out of trouble.
Cool. What was your first fishing memory?
Oh, Jesus. And like I said, my dad and I's relationship, it was good in the beginning. And he was kind of the one that kind of got me into fishing. Later in life, it, went a different path, but, there, a lot of it would just be, him and I going fishing. I think the earliest one I can remember would be up at my grandparents' cabin up in northern Wisconsin. And I would always go down there and I'd be so excited to go fishing. That was the only thing I cared about the entire drive. Like we'd get there, talk to the grandparents, or if we were at my great aunt's resort up in Minnesota, like the longest half hour of my life was sitting there catching up with family when I'm looking at the lake, wanting to go fishing. And I remember racing down. I couldn't have been more than 5 years old, racing down to the dock, and I'm fishing, and I'm just so excited. I'm catching fish after fish after fish. And it was a T dock. Yeah. And I was in the left corner, and I'm just so not aware, and I'm casting, I'm flipping over here, I'm flipping over there, flipping here, and I take a step back, and I just basically walked off the back of the dock. And I had a fish on, and I remember falling in, and my dad jumped in, got me, because I mean it was way over my head. I was young, and he got me a come up, and all I cared about was my rod, if I still had the fish on, so that's probably one of the earliest. There was a lot more, if I really think about it, but yeah, if something like that was because that was like a shock, like, oh my gosh, all of a sudden I'm reeling in a fish, next thing I know I'm swimming, so it's just one of those things.
They work together.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure.
That's what real quick, my first one was like, I was like 4 or 5 years old, and my grandpa took me out fishing this little lake in San Diego County, and I caught like a 4-inch bluegill. I mean, it was tiny, but my grandpa was one of those guys from the old school. He grew up poor where they kept everything.
Oh yeah.
So we kept this bluegill. He made it for me. I ate it. That was by far my first, fishing memory, was eating that tiny little bluegill, but it was also the first fish that I caught on my own. So, one of those things just work hand in hand, sticking into your mind, because there's something else that goes along with it.
Where was that at?
San Diego County.
From California originally then?
Yeah, I was born in San Diego, lived there for a lot of years. Went back after high school, and then came back here to South Dakota 16, 17 years ago.
Yeah, so, man, I love San Diego. That's where boot camp for the Marine Corps is right there. MCRD San Diego is right there. And when you land, that if you look, when you land right on the right, the fence on the runway where everyone lands, the fence divides the airport and MCRD San Diego. So we'd spend that's where I did my boot camp, and I just remember watching all those airplanes and stuff like that. And you're right on the water, can't go fishing. You're like, God, I always wanted to go fishing down there. It's absolutely beautiful there. I'll
tell you what, if you got, we've got fish that rip in freshwater, but the hardest pound per pound fish I've ever caught was a yellowtail. And it didn't take a big one, 12, 15 pounder would absolutely pin you to the rail on these big boats. I haven't gotten back there to fish for them in a long time, but I just absolutely am like amped to get back there and try to catch one of those things again, because they are just awesome. You catch them on surface irons, like 6 or 8 inch pieces of aluminum with a treble hook on the back, and you just reel it in, steady retrieve, and that thing is just flipping through the water.
That's crazy.
Oh, dude, it is awesome. It's awesome.
That's awesome.
Heck yeah. So what made you, so you grew up, right? You said you went into the Marines, you got out. What made you transition from, just fishing as a hobby fisherman, a weekend warrior, to I'm going to do this as a pro? Because you did it really young. I mean, obviously you won, the NWT Championship at what, 21 was it?
Yeah. Yep. Just turned 21.
Yeah. So, that wasn't like your first tournament. I mean, did you transition from the state level to that level, or what happened there?
Yeah. So it all started in my junior year of high school. I was not graced with the superior athletic genetics. My mom's 4'10", and my dad's like 5'10". So I reached the height that I am right now at about 7th grade, and then just stopped growing, started growing outwards instead of, tall. Yeah. And I realized one day after it would have been my freshman year of high school, I played football, and it was fine. I was playing freshman and JV, and I was, and I love football. Football was my life. I was a big sports fanatic. But they started to, after the season was done, we finished with our last game, and then Monday, or they were like, all right, boys, this was like a Saturday, and they're like, all right, boys, Monday morning, 5 a.m. off-season lifting starts. And I'm like, we just we went into camp in July, or end of June, July, ran all summer long, all fall. And then now it's hunting season, and I'm supposed to be in here 7 days a week. Like, no, I don't want to do that. And so I was like, screw that. So I started playing, I picked up rugby, and I played rugby for a couple of years. And that was cool, because it was like springtime, whatever. And it was like 3 days a week, all that. And I liked it. Well, then I kind of stopped playing it a little bit. I didn't play it as much. I had a bunch of concussions. I was a big snowboarder also. Before I got big into fishing, I was huge into snowboarding, and I've always been a daredevil. And so I started racking up the concussions, wound up in the hospital for one, blacked out for like 12 hours. And the doctors basically said, if you continue to have concussions like this, like, you could die, and I was like, okay, well, I'm starting to get bigger into fishing, liking fishing, all that. And it was the I want to say it was the summer of my junior year. And I decided I was fishing every day at that point. I'd bought a boat. I had a 16-foot Mirocraft, and I was driving from my house in Wales up to Winnebago 7 days a week. And that's an hour and a half drive. Whether or not I'd get I get out of school, I'd drive straight to Winnebago and I'd fish for 3-4 hours until I had to drive home, go to bed. Or when I was, I'd get done with work. And then I go straight fishing, whatever. So I was still super competitive. And I just decided one day, I was like, you know what? Because I always said I wanted to be a professional fisherman. That was like my goal from like as long as I could talk. I wanted to be, like Gary Parsons was my idol growing up. I did my senior book report on Gary Parsons, where you're supposed to like write a life story about a famous person. I picked Gary Parsons, right?
Nice.
And so I decided I wanted to fish a tournament. And so I Googled tournaments on Winnebago, and I found, this was on a Tuesday, and I found a club, called the Sheboygan Walleye Club. And it's a really awesome grassroots, your walleye club, it's kind of like, the club tournaments in southeastern, South Dakota, it's same thing. And they had one that coming like Saturday. And so I said, you know what, screw it. I'm going to jump in it. And, I jumped in it. I remember I pre-fished for one day, and I didn't know what I was doing. I mean, I was catching fish. I didn't really know what to expect, and I was so excited. I mean, I was like, all tournament guys were my idols growing up, every one of them. And I remember talking to a tournament guy at the landing, and I was so excited. I'm like, yeah, I'm fishing that tournament this weekend. And he goes, good luck, you're gonna need it. He was just a total like dick to me, and he's like, good luck, you're gonna need it. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like talking to him, and I'm like, I was so young, I didn't know. I was like, yeah. I'm like, there's a lot of fish in the river. Like, there's some really good ones. I caught some nice ones today. Yeah. And I'll never forget. He told me, you'd be an idiot to fish the river. And he goes, you clearly don't know what you're doing. And then he said he was going to win it up in the northeast corner of Winnebago. And I was just like, all right. Like, that was just like a disappointing, like first, interaction, So I went in and fished a tournament out of my 16-footer. And we went to my spot in the river, and we ended up taking second, and we missed the win by 1 ounce. I think we weighed, it was a live weight. We weighed 12.96 and 12.971. So it was like less than an ounce. Like, it was like right there. Right. Yeah. Well, we're sitting at weigh-in or whatever. And I'm like, holy cow, like that was so cool, whatever. And they hand me a plaque. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I got a trophy. And then they handed me like, it was like $300 or $400. Cause I think we didn't win big fish, but we won that. And I'm like, oh my God, this is incredible. I'm like, I just got, a 17-year-old kid getting paid to fish. I'm like, you can do this, Yeah. And so like, I've always had a really addictive personality. Like if I start doing anything, like I get into any hobby, I'm all in. I want to be the best at it. Like I don't do anything half-assed. Like I want to just like perfect it. Yeah. And so I just started fishing every single tournament I could. And the next one, and this has shaped me to this day. I will never, ever forget this as long as I live. I dove into research because it was on Green Bay. I'd never fished Green Bay that time of year. I fished in the spring a couple times growing up, but I never fished in the summer. And so I'm going online. I'm watching all the YouTube videos. I'm just soaking up all the literature there is. And through my research, I found all these guys on Green Bay, guides, tournament fishermen, TV personality, because this was back before like YouTube was really a big thing. And so I'm like, oh my gosh. And so I crafted this message and I sent it out to like 25 guys. And all it was, I said in the very beginning, I said, I do not want any spots. I'm not asking for spots or anything, but I'm not understanding based off of what I'm reading online, because they talk about the mud bite, the gravel, all these different bites. I'm like, how do you determine where these fish are? And like, I was trying to understand like how the bay operates, right? In like progression, migratory, because you always seen about spawning and migrating and stuff like that. And so I had these questions, and so I crafted this really nice, respectful, like, hey, I'm a high schooler. I'm just getting into tournament fishing. I've watched you for, quite some time, your posts. You seem to know what you're doing. How do you determine this? How do you do this? How do you just asking basic questions? No, like, hey, where do I go to catch a fish? My cousin, brother-in-law, stepson with one leg once, has never caught a 30 incher, it wasn't one of those. Yeah. And I'll never forget it. Out of like the 25 guys, half of them, about maybe a little bit less than half, ignored me, which is whatever. Another few told me to F off. A couple more told me blatant lies. Like I'll go pull flicker sheds at the 41 or the 43 bridge, 10 feet back and 40 feet of water. Like just wanting to send, just rude. Right. And then quite a few, told me to quit being lazy and go figure it out for myself, and quit being a leech. And I was just like so taken aback by that. Like, I was just like, wow, like I thought it was a very nice, respectful message to like people that I looked up to. And that was like my first taste of what the fishing industry can be.
Yeah.
So like I held on to that. Right. But there was one person who responded. I mean, there was quite a few people, a couple people that, responded, that answered my questions, that were like very nice. Like Bob Klaus was one of them. He was a tournament director of the Sheboygan Walleye Club at the time. He, and there was quite a few of them that gave me, good information, right. And helped, young kid out. But there was one guy who, like went above and beyond, and his name was Cam Lewis, and he's a hell of a stick around here. And like he had what it took to fish on the national level. And he said, he goes, I've been watching you. I've really been impressed with what you're doing. And I really like what you're doing, and I really think you can do it. He goes, if you ever need anything, go ahead. And he sends me this big long message of just breaking down, like going super in depth. Right. Yeah. And I was like, oh my God, thank you. Like that was way more than, what I asked for, but I really appreciate it, And so every day during practice, I would go out and I would go fish. Well, then he would call me at the end of the day and break down what I did that day and why I was seeing that. And, just like the full in-depth analysis of what was happening. And I didn't know what the heck I was doing. So I was so far out over my head, and I'm not catching fish anywhere, and I'm spiraling. I'm like, I spent 5 days, literally sun up to sundown out there fishing. And he finally goes, all right. He goes, I'll go out. He goes, I'm going to go check some stuff. I'll let you know. So he hands me this, like, and I'm 16. You barely even know how to run planer boards or anything. He finds this mud trolling bite and he tells me about it. And he goes, I just really want, I asked him, I said, why are you helping me like this much? And I was like, I really appreciate it. Like, you have no idea. No one's ever done this for me, but like, I feel bad. And he goes, no, he goes, this is what you do when like you help good people. You know what I mean? That's, the industry needs more of it. Yeah. And, we actually ended up taking like 9th or something like that. And that's when I got addicted. So I jumped in, fished an AIM. That was back when AIM had the Pro Co. Their big tour events. I fished that one as a co. My very first person I ever drew was Gary Parsons, which was absolutely mind blowing. I was like, oh my God. And when Gary Parsons told me that, he saw the drive in me and that I could be successful at that, that was like the biggest compliment I could have ever gotten in my life. So I fished, and then I fished the NWT as a co, for 2 tournaments. I fished Escanaba one where shiver minnow, like jigging shivering came like onto the spotlight. I was at that tournament. And then I fished the NWT Championship as a co-angler on Winnebago, my home water. And I took 6th or something like that. 8th or no, something like that. I don't know. The trophy's up there. But I took a top 10. And back then they gave you these big like glass trophies. And I was like, that was the most addicting thing I've ever experienced. Right. And so that entire first summer, I just had absolute luck, right? Like I did not know what I was doing, but I was like, I don't think I finished lower than 19th that first summer. And I fished a ton of tournaments, and my head just was doing this, and then this was going into my senior year. And then I graduated early from high school so I could fish, because I was leaving for boot camp in June, and I wanted to fish that spring tournament season before I left. So I graduated early from high school. How? I don't know, because I was not a good student. And so then I started fishing. I was fishing the MWCs. I was fishing the AIMs, all the local stuff. And then I wanted to fish an NWT as a pro before it left. So then I ended up winning my first tournament that April. I won an aim on the Detroit River, which was funny because the day before that one, we fished the MWC out of St. Clair Shores. And I ran from all the way from St. Clair Shores, not knowing how good the Detroit River was at this point. I didn't know that you caught like 10-pound walleyes out of this thing. Thought you had to go to Erie. So I ran all the way from St. Clair Shores, 87 miles, all the way down to South Bass, down in southern Lake Erie. And that was the scariest, craziest thing I ever did. And we did that 2 days in a row, and we weighed like 36 and 41 pounds or something like that. And we didn't cash a check. And I was like, that was insane.
Yeah.
And then we went out and fished the aim the next day, and we went a half mile from the boat launch and caught, I think it was like 52.5 pounds. And I ended up, that was my first win. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. And then I ended up skipping my senior year of I ended up skipping my graduation. I didn't go to my high school graduation because I fished my first NWT as a pro on Leech Lake. So I did that. Then I went to boot camp, and I was gone for like about a year for all the training. I missed the entire half of the 15 season, the first half of the 16 season. I came back, I jumped into everything I could, and that whole year I was gone, I was like, I'm Walleye Jesus, like at that young, dumb, like think everything, and
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to get back. And then I got back and proceeded to get my head caved in at every event for like 2 years. And I was still working a sales job. And then, and then it was 2016, 2017. I sucked. I had one good tournament in 2017 on Erie on the NTC. We were tied for the lead going to the last day. And then it just didn't happen. But I was sucking. I had the worst luck. Like stuff would break. This like the craziest stuff would happen to me. And all my friends are like, dude, you have the worst luck of anyone I know. And it wasn't until like 2018 that it started to like come together. And that even like that NWT championship, that was gonna, like, a lot of people don't know, and I've told this story a few times, that was gonna be my last tournament or my last NWT, because up until that point I cashed one check on the NWT, and it was on Winnebago, my home water, and I just couldn't put it together. I sucked, and I was so demoralized, and I'll never forget it. And it's the only time I do not get jealous of other people. Like I try not to, like, because like there's just too much hatred in the world. Like I try and lift others up, right? But I watched Dylan Nussbaum win the Devil's Lake event 50 yards from me, and him and I are the same age. And I wanted to be the youngest to ever win a national walleye tour so bad. Like that's all I cared about. That's all I wanted. Like I had all these goals in my mind that I wanted to do. And I watched him win, and I love Dylan. Dylan's like one of the nicest kids. Like you can't not like Dylan. But I was so salty because I finished 104th. And I was 50 yards away from the guy who won it. And it was the worst tournament I've ever had. Like I like stuff broke. Like it just was like the worst thing I could, tournament. And I was so demoralized after that. And I was like, I can't compete on the NWT. I'm not good enough. I just can't do this. Yeah. And I threw myself like a pity party for like an hour. And then I got pissed and I was like, you know what? No, that's not, no. Like, so I forced myself to drive the 12 hours home. I drove through the night. I went straight to the boat launch in Green Bay, and I went out and I fished a 12-hour day on Green Bay. And I told myself, I'm like, you qualified for the championship. You're going to go fish the championship. And then I was going to take a step back. I was going to fish the championship, and then I was just going to fish the MWCs, because that's when Isaac and I started. That was when we won our first team of the year. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to fish Lake of the Woods. And then, 2019 and beyond, I'm just going to take a step back and, maybe work my way back. And then, then Lake of the Woods happened. And then that was all I needed in my mind to tell me, because then we won Team of the Year the next week. And then we won a tournament the week after that back home. And that was all I needed, was just the belief. Because when you're young, like I was, like my original, the original fans of mine will remember when I was rocking flat brims and I was Flat Brim Nation. Like that was my brand back in the day. And the whole reason why that started was because some idiot decided to comment on my post and tell me I was a flat brim wearing clown who's going to get murdered by the pros. And another guy told me that my mom deserved to get slapped for raising such a punk kid. And I was like, I was so mad about it. I was like, I am now going to wear a flat brim every single day just to piss you off. And that was like, that was like the OG thing. And when you have so many people telling you can't do something, you kind of, that doubt creeps into your mind a little bit. And that championship was when I was like, okay, I can actually do this. And then it was just full steam ahead ever since then.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's something that obviously, I mean, had you finished anything but at the top, do you think it would have driven you to keep going, or do you think it took a win to keep your fire lit?
I think, if I would have top 10'd it, and to be honest with you, man, like, I am one of the most stubborn people you'll ever meet. So would I have actually probably quit? I don't know. I was close. I know that. And I really didn't think I could do it. I probably would still be doing, like, I probably still would fish a couple, but like the whole tour, probably not.
Yeah.
But I think, a good finish there definitely helped me be like, when you're going against, like, this was back, I mean, he's still a hammer now, nothing's changed, but like that was in the height of Corey Springle winning everything, right? Like that was when Springle was, otherworldly. And then, you had like Jason Securit and all these like top name guys that were just top 10ing and winning every single event. You're like, I have to go against these guys. Like I don't have what that takes. But then once I started, having success and realizing it's not me versus them, it's me versus the fish, and they're human. Like they're going to have, I think I watched like Springle coming with like 1 or 2 fish one time. And I was like, oh my God, like it just was like that, that of they're human, you know what I mean? And, it opened my eyes and kind of gave me that confidence, because fishing is all about confidence in my opinion.
Yeah, it's like these guys. I saw this thing floating around. There's like different levels of being a fisherman. There's like, I want to go out and catch a fish. I want to go out and catch a bunch of fish. I want to go out and catch only big fish. And then level 4, you revert back to, or you go to, I want to catch fish on what I want to catch them on. So basically you want to take and, say everyone else is throwing jigging wraps and you want to throw a hair jig, but nobody's throwing hair jigs. So you don't know if they bite, but you're so driven that you're like, I'm going to show you that hair jigs will work. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just, there's those levels of being a fisherman where if you have that confidence in whatever you're chucking, you can have good results, right?
The best advice I ever got in the industry, like ever, was like one of my biggest mentors was Tommy Scarless. And Tommy was so cool because he was a lot like me, right? Like he had that big, bright personality. Some people loved him, some people hated him, and he was good. And he wasn't afraid to be himself, right? And he saw that very early on, and he pulled me aside. He was one of the very, very, very first pros that was ever nice to me, and like gave me the time of day, right? And he told me there's a lot of things he told me, but the one he told me, he goes, Max, there's people who fish tournaments. There's people that are there for the fashion show. The guys with the guys that pay for the wrap boats out of their own pocket, wrap their trucks, got the big stickers and everything flashiest. And then they go finish like 93rd on Lake Erie. It's like you have those, and then you have the people that are there, to compete. They might have a good, good showing every once in a while. And then there's the people that are there to win. Right. And those are the people that, they don't care what boat they're in. They don't care what jersey they're wearing. They don't care, I don't got the biggest flashies, whatever. They're just there to be the best at what they do. And like, I've kept that with me, but then also like, I like having, flashy stuff. I don't like people looking at me. I just like having stuff that I like that looks cool and loud and, awesome and flashy and customized. Like I've always liked that. Right. But like my mindset, like I never have this spotless boat. I always say my boat's a working man's boat. Like Dude,
I've seen like on Tour Level Gold, I've seen the inside of your boat, when you're like doing something after a tournament prep and stuff. And I'm like, dang, that thing is used. What I'm saying? Like,
and that's my thing. Like, and like I've had sponsors, scold me, but I tell them, I said, look, I'm going to put your product to the absolute test, but B, like I am all I care about is, like, the money spends, right? Like money is nice, winning money. That's very important, right? Like you need money to live and do everything. But like at the end of the day, we fish tournaments for that stuff. You know what I mean? Like you like to sit back and look at your accomplishments. It's not to put in anyone else's face. It's just for me. It's like, I like to look at that. Right. So like, that's my only mindset is how can I how can I cash a check? How can I win? You know, I mean, how can I be the absolute best fisherman I can be? Like, that's why, you know, I don't have a wrap every year. I don't have this, you know, it's just like, I don't care. You know, you look at like the live scope setups that these guys have nowadays and all these different mounts and transducers and this, that, different graphs and blah, blah, blah. I've run the same graph for the last 4 years and one singular transducer. Like, I just put a second deucer for a co-angler just for them to look at something, you know what I mean? Like, my focus has been just being the best I can. And like, you know, and that's where I've just tried to be a little different, because that's all I care about. I don't care about shooting a YouTube video, nothing. I just want to catch the best and the most amount of fish.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's personal, you know, accomplishment, obviously. MWC's team event, NTC's team event, but you know, NWT is it's just you, right? Like, it's personal accomplishment, and you're the one who gets to hoist that trophy. And I mean, at the end of the day, say that, you know, you outfished, you know, 100 other guys or whatever's in the field. So it totally makes sense. All right. So let's break into tournament mindset. So we talked earlier on the phone, and something kind of clicked regarding this question that I had for you. You know, you fish so many tournaments, and like you said, the tournaments kind of just blend into each other. So for you, you can't go, all right, I'm fishing NWT only, or MWC and NWT, and you have a 2 or 3 week reset between tournaments, you know, or a month if you're just fishing on NWT or longer. So for you, your mindset has to stay lit up pretty much all the time, right? Like, are you going out pre-fishing, you're trying to find the fish, but then on tournament day, you know, you're using the information that you got, or are you just approaching even pre-fishing like it's a tournament day?
You know, yes and no. So like, my mind, like I'm always playing chess in my head, right? Like, I'm always kind of like 2 or 3 moves ahead, you know, coming up to it. And I'm always kind of like planning for it, right? Like, behind the scenes. Like, you know, when I went to Europe this last fall, I was in bait shops overseas, and I found, like, I'd find different baits for different tournaments that would potentially work in different bodies of water. Like, I got a lot of different stuff for a wahi, you know, that I will be amazed if I don't catch fish on it. You know, I got stuff for like Lake Erie. You know, it's just like those little things where it's not like I'm going to Northern Ireland to get this bait, you know, or I'm going to, you know, Amsterdam or Latvia or wherever. Like, I just happen to be there, and it's like, oh, that would be good in that, you know, like, I'm always looking ahead, that type of situation. But like, when I'm coming to the tournament, it's funny, because like, I'll keep an eye on things once we start getting about 3 weeks ahead of time. But like, I always tell people, if you start worrying about the tournament way too far in advance, you're going to spiral yourself out before you even get there. Like, I don't even look at the weather. I don't look at fishing reports. I don't, like, none of that. I don't look at any of that until I'm about, you know, a couple days before I'm supposed to leave, because otherwise, you know, if the forecast is going to be bad, or, you know, whatever, fishing's bad or whatever, I'm just going to sit there and panic and be in a, you know, crap mood before I even get there. Mm-hmm. So when I get there, and it's funny, like, a lot of times, and it drives my teammates nuts, because they're like, well, what's your plan? You know, like, as we're driving there, I'm like, honestly, I don't know what my plan is. I'm just going to go out fishing and let I've learned to trust my gut on a lot of things. Mm-hmm. And like, I feel like where I always tell people, there's a million people out there that are better fishermen than me. I'm not the best fisherman in the world, but where I feel like I make my mark and I do really well is my decision making and my like ability to read data and remember data and like process it, where there's a lot of different factors that a lot of people don't pay attention to that I just kind of pick up on, and it'll kind of give me an idea. And a lot of it, you know, and it also, it's different too, if I've been there before or not. If I go to a brand new body of water, I'll go to something, I'll look at the map as I'm driving out and be like, well, that looks juicy. Having no idea if it's juicy or not. Mm-hmm. I'll be like, well, that looks good, and I'll go fish that. If I, you know, if I've been there before, then I kind of got an idea, like, you know, and we'll get into it, but like the NTC, where we ended up winning and how we ended up winning was because of my failures at the NWT. Like, I had the fish on to win it, right? Mm-hmm. I was right there with Dewey. Like, I had the fish to do it. And it's, you know, every tournament's like that. Everyone had the winning fish on, but like, I knew what I did wrong. So I always tell myself, I learn more from my failures than I do any of my successes. So, you know, if I had some, you know, mistake at the last tournament, well, then that's in my mind, and I cannot wait to go back, because the first thing I'm going to do is do the opposite of what I did the last time, you know, and I'm going to be able to go in that. And that the last 2 NTCs, we were in contention to win on the final day. And that was from both of them, on Erie and on, Francis Case are both times were from my last tournament being there where I messed up. You know what I mean? So I'll do a lot of that, but it's a lot of kind of going with the flow, being prepared, having all the loose ends tied up. So when you get there, then you can look at the data, be like, okay, this is the weather, this is the current fishing report, this is what the lake looks like, this is what I'm seeing, and then okay, and then you pick the spot on the map, and then you go from there. And it's just constantly, evolving, and what you're learning each day is different, and each hour is kind of different.
Yeah, no, it totally makes sense. There's you can't just go out and try the same thing every time and expect to get consistent results, so.
Well, I mean, that's the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, and expecting different results, so it's just learning to adapt. And then, and that's where I like it. I'll fish it like a tournament, but I'm also like, my number one thing when I get to a body of water, and Springle always said it too, and that's kind of where I learned it from, was when you get to a body of water, my most important thing is I want to catch fish. I don't care where, how. I usually, the first couple of days, I'm not going there for a tournament. I just need to go catch fish. So I'll go to like a community hole, or where, a lot of people are, popular area or whatever. And I'll go stick a few, and then I'll learn, okay, they're eating this, they're eating that. This is the cadence, blah, blah, blah. Okay, now let's go find those steezy little back areas where, nobody's going to be, or, cause you got to get away from the crowd. You do not win tournaments being by the crowd.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned the NTC 2025. Let's talk about that. Pickstown, right? Like that was going to be a challenging fishery, right? For going into that tournament, or did you find that it was going to be pretty easy? What'd you feel on that?
Oh, I love Pickstown. Like I was so excited. I told Rob, I told him, I said, we're going to have so much fun. Like that's such a like powerhouse fishery for numbers. Like, there's not a ton of giants. It's not like a wahi. But it's got a lot of nice fish in it, and it's got a lot of numbers. And when it all started, the first year in 2023, when we were there for the NWT, we were fishing back bass. That was a big thing, and that was one of those situations where I got to my Airbnb, and this is in 23, and we were staying in the bay that Takeoff is out of. And we're right on the water, and we're overlooking this like rocky point. And I said to the Airbnb owner, I said, "Oh, that looks like a nice little spot." I said, "You ever catch walleyes there?" He goes, "Yeah, no, it's a really good spot." I'm like, "Okay, cool." And so we come out of the ramp, and I'm not the greatest like deep tree fisherman. Like it drives me nuts, because like it's just there's so many things that go wrong, and they can be so frustrating. That I try and stay away from it. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to go check this back bay out, not knowing that there's a back bay bite. Like I know in the Missouri River, they spawn in the back of the bays, and they spend a lot of time there early spring, but I didn't have much experience mid-June. And anyways, I go to this spot, and I roll in, and I start scanning around. I see a couple fish. I throw a white fluke at it. Boom. First fish, 22 incher. And I like, that sucked with that being my first fish. Cause it's like, it makes you think like, oh, overs are really easy to catch here. You know what I mean? Like my first cast was a 22 incher. That's nothing, And so I fished around, kind of got an idea, started to learn it a little bit, but I overlooked some things. Well, that spot ended up being the spot that Dewey won off of. And that was the first spot I fished, right? So I was fishing a different part of the lake, doing similar technique. And day one started out really well. I had some really nice unders. And then I told my cameraman, I said, we're going to go on 10 on the trolling motor until I see an over, and we're not casting until we see an over. Well, I made it like 10 yards, and I saw my first over of the week. It was just a big orb. I pitch at it, and it was like a 26 incher, like almost 5.5 pounder. Yeah. And I landed, and you could hear me like miles away. I was like, oh, I was all pumped. Well, you get two overs, and I had one spot left. So I'm like, oh my God, this is like the Cinderella, I got one spot left, let's do this. Right. Well, I roll into this next, I had a big fish spot. So we roll in the big fish spot, and I see this mark, and I'm like, there's no way that's a walleye. Like that's gotta be like a carp or something. Cause it was just so big for Francis Case. And so I pitched the jig wrap on it, and the thing does the walleye swirl, when they do this, like they shark around on the bait. Yeah. Well, he did that, and I went, oh my God, it's a walleye. And I popped it once, and he just throttled it, and I set the hook, and this thing comes up, and it is a legit 7 to 8 pounder, which is a unicorn on Francis Case, absolute unicorn. And I'm just about to net it. It's just out of net range for my and that jig and wrap just comes flying back and sticks into my face. And I lost it because I have, like, my career, everybody loses a big fish or something. I just have a really, 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 really good knack of every tournament I lose at least one. And I was going through a phase back then of I was losing a lot of fish because I was a big jig wrap guy. And you live by the sword, you die by the sword with jig wraps. And it cost me so many wins and good finishes, and like I'd been right there, but lost fish or affect me, and that spiraled me. It spun me out, and I was sitting really good after day one with the weight I had, and that one fish would have put me, if it was 7 pounds, it would have put me about 6, or it would have given me an extra 6 pounds, and I would have been like 2 pounds above Dewey, and. So that pissed, that sucked. Well, I went out and had a good day too, and I was like top 10. I think it was 10th or 11th in that one. And that weight, that one fish was like the difference, right? So I told myself when we came back, and I'm like, that's going to be the program. I did not go to my big fish. I had found a big fish spot the last day of practice. I went up there, looked at it. I did not run up there for the tournament because it was just bigs, and the unders were terrible. So I played it safer. And I told Rob, I said, we're going to go fish my big fish spot and see if it's still going. And I fished for a couple days before he got there. I hit all the bay that I stayed in, all the other bays that I kind of fished. And every day I had like 14, 16, 17, 14, I was consistently up there. And Rob shows up, and I told him, I said, all right, we're going to go check the big fish spot now. And we roll up and go to check the big fish area. And in like 3 hours, we had like 21 pounds. And with a slot with only 2 overs on Francis Case, that's like a absolute insane bag.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, this is incredible. Like, we're going to win this tournament. I'm like, this is insane. And we start going to run to another spot to go check it. And all of a sudden I came off a plane and my motors just start shaking. And I'm like, no. And I knew exactly what it was because I'd blown a power head the year before. And I'm like, I told him, I just blew my power head. And he's like, no, it's got to be your prop. I'm like, dude, I'm telling you, I know that feeling. Like, and I was having like weird motor stuff all year. And like, it was giving me fits last year. And I just was like defeated puppy. And I immediately, like, I was pissed for about 30 seconds. And then I was like, nope. Because like I said, I'm so stubborn. And I immediately just went into like, what do we need to do? And this was Saturday before the tournament. And so I immediately call my dealer. I'm like, hey, this is what happened. I have the best dealer on the face of the earth. Like, they are, like, the folks at Cedar Lake Sales, like, they are they move mountains, right? They're the reason why I'm able to stay on the water. And I call them like, hey, this is what I got going on. My mind immediately went to like the NWT that I had like right after this. And I was like, I got to get this part. I got to get this fixed. I got to get this going. So while I'm all about efficiency. So I'm like, I need my boat getting fixed while I'm fishing this tournament. You know what I mean? So I immediately call them, get that figured out. And then I first call after that, I call one of my best friends. His name's Vaughn. And he travels with us for the NWTs. He's my traveling partner for the MWCs. Like, genuinely one of the greatest human beings you've ever met. Like, the guy would give the shirt off his back for you. Like, when he traveled with us as a he was like the MVP of the team. And he's got a Vexus. And I call him and I said, hey, I just blew my motor. And he goes, I didn't have to ask. He goes, I'll clean it out. Come get it. Like, I didn't even have to ask nothing, And I'm like, dude, thank you so much. Like, oh my, you have no idea. I mean, like, our boats are our babies. So could you imagine giving it to your friend that drives crazy fast and is like a wild child, to go rip in a derb? Like,
yeah, fun.
And so we limp, and we were 14 miles from the ramp at this point. And so we limp it back. We get back to the ramp. I get on the trailer. My buddy is weighing in for a local tournament. He tries talking to me. I was like, I can't talk, blew my motor, got to go home. And I just take off. We drive all the way from Pickstown to my house, which is 9.5 hours. We drive through the night. I get home about 3 o'clock in the morning, sleep for like 3-4 hours. I get up, I have my boat at my dealer. By the time they open, I immediately go from there. And my buddy Vaughn lives in Bemidji, Minnesota. So I immediately drive from my house in like south central Wisconsin all the way up to Bemidji, which is 8.5 hours, pick up his boat. And then it was 8.5 hours from his house to Pickstown. So then we turn and burn, drive down to Pickstown, and we get there and we were back on the water by Monday morning. And we spent the rest of the week, like, because I told Rob, I was like, we're winning this tournament. Like, I don't care what it takes, what happens. And I just missed out on winning the year before. We finished like third. And I like, that was one of the last things. That and Angler of the Year were the two last things that like my goals that I had left to win. And I really, really wanted it. And I'm like, dude, we're doing this. Like, we have to. And so we fish out the rest of the week. And day one, we roll back into the spot. And like the number one most important thing is to get your ring. So like for these tournaments, what's the coolest part is if you make top 25, you get they call it the All-American ring. So that's like one of the coolest things, right? Like it's the only series that does that. And so the number one goal is get the ring first. And so I played it kind of conservative on day one, and I kept 2 like 4.5 pounders, which are good fish for Francis Case. And we come in, and I think we're in it's like 7th or 10th or something. Like we were in the top 10, but we were low. We were ways out. Yeah. And we're feeling good. Of course, Dewey's up there. I'm like, okay, it's a Missouri River tournament. It's Dewey. Well, day 2. So we have a thing, and I won't get into it too much, but it's called Family Night on the NWT. And it's a science at this point. Like we've proven it over the last 3 years with Hunter winning AOI, me and JJ winning tournaments. Like if you have a night with your boys where you're sitting there kicking back some beers, it's probably staying up a little past your bedtime, the next day, like you may be exhausted, you know what I mean? Like, we half the time we end up just sitting there BSing about fishing till like 12, 1 o'clock, but we always call it family night. Like instead of going to bed early or, usually it's on blow days. Like you have a blow day where you can't do anything, you sit around, hang out with boys all day. The next day is always legendary. And it's always like your best day of fishing. Right. And it's crazy. It's a proven fact. Well, we went out, had dinner with everyone, and we ran into like the Nitty family and all that. And we ended up sitting there having dinner with them, stayed out a little later at 11. Then we were all staying by each other. So then we sat around the bonfire until, I don't know, 1, 2 o'clock. And, so you get 0 sleep. Well, then we go out, we have the best day of fishing you could ever have, but I messed up and I caught a 7-pounder right away in the morning. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like that in my mind, I'm like, okay, I'm doing the law of averages. I'm doing the math. I'm like, okay, so like I can get away with a smaller over, that'll average out, blah, 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 blah. Well, I kept like a 3.5 pounder and had really, decent unders. And then I proceeded to catch accidentally 6 pounders, 6 pounders, 7 pounder, 5 pounder. And I'm like, I'm casting at a 19 that's over here, and a random 7 pounder is coming out of the tree and stealing my bait. And I'm like ripping away from it, and it's coming up and eating it. There was one where there was another competitor behind me that I'd seen about a 6-7 pounder right there, and I played a little defense and cast at it and caught it and just kind of told him don't do that and then let him go. That one I did accidentally on purpose, but other than that, it was like on accident. Yeah. And so I'm just like so mad because I know I have to take down Dewey Helm. Like he is the god. He dug that river with a spoon on his summer break. Like that guy just owns the river. Yeah. And so you're chasing him. You are. And so I'm just mad. I'm like, I left so much weight on the table, and we're coming in on day 2, and as we're coming in, all of a sudden, this boat just stops right in front of me and just starts flagging me down. And I'm like, whoa, what the heck happened? Well, here it was Dewey and Tyson, and it was their motor broke down, and they needed a ride in, and they had he gets in the boat, and I'm like, and of course, Dewey's one of my closest friends on tour. And I'm like, how big of a bag do you got? He goes, big. And I'm like, well, sorry, no ride. Just screwing with him. And he jumps in, and here his bag, he had like an 18-pound bag or something like that. And he jumped me in the standings. And so going into the final day, I'm in second, Dewey's in first, and I gave him a ride in. And I'm like, I told Rob, I said, this better be some good fish karma right here. Of course I'm going to help him, but I'm like, I think because I gave, the king of the Missouri a ride in, maybe I'll get, bestowed some good luck or something.
Yeah.
And so then we had another family night. And we stayed out way too late once again, because I was like, the science is sciencing. Like, you have to, fishermen are superstitious. And so we ended up, and it was great because like I got to make a lot of really great new friends, because there's one restaurant in Pickstown. It's this one bar restaurant, and they had like live music. It was a great night. And there was a lot of the guys that were competing in that tournament that I had never met before that, were big fans of me, and I became friends with. Like, the one guy was a chiropractor. He was giving out like chiropractic adjustments at the tournament, at the rules meeting and stuff like that. Like, it was just super cool. So, we're sitting there, and I'm having beers with these guys, talking, getting to know them, making a lot of new friends. And next thing I know, it's, again, 1:30 in the morning. And I'm like, dude, we got to go to bed. Like we weren't like messed up. We were just out way too late. I'm like, dude, we need to get some sleep, Yeah. And so we go out, and, we're tired, we're exhausted, and it's 105 degrees each day. This final day was supposed to be 110. So it's, you're exhausted. You're just, dehydrated. It's stuffy. And we go out, and I'm like, dude, we need a miracle today. And I said, I was like, I got my ring. I made the top 25. I'm going, like, you have to go for broke on the final day. And so I told Rob, I said, I am not keeping anything under 6 pounds. And I get in a spot, had another angler come in back by me that kind of cut me off a little bit. So I was like, had to walk around some added pressure. And I found this fish, and it was a giant. It was one of those like mega giants. And I start chasing it. I chased it for an hour, and I'm just like, I would not leave her alone. I'm like, I need you really bad, please. Wow. And she bit twice, I want to say, and I missed her. And I'm just over here like, just losing it. And I actually it was really cool. It's the first time I ever had it. I had some fans of mine, the Palmer family. They came and watched me on the final day. They floated right next to me, and it was really cool. Well, they're like 40 yards off the side of my boat, and I tell them, like, dude, I am chasing an absolute giant. So like everyone's holding their breath, and I pitch at her, and she starts going down. And the only thing I could, like, jigging wraps were the main bait all week. But towards the end of the week, they started to eat the jig crawl, which that's my favorite thing in the whole wide world. Mm-hmm. But the only thing that would eat it were the big fish. The unders or the smaller overs wouldn't eat it. It was just the bigs. And so finally, after denying everything forever, she starts going down to, like, go out of my dreams. And so I picked up the jig crawl, and I'm like, I'm just going to do one little flip. And it was like a half, like, out of pocket sideways flip. And as I'm dropping down, she just comes up and goes and just annihilates it. And I reel down, I set the hook, and I'm like, I had that fish to the surface in probably about 3 seconds. I'm just going, it's her. Like, as fast as I could get it. Yeah. And we landed it, and I just let out the absolute loudest, like, let's go you could ever hear. And I boxed. It was like 6.5 something pounds. And so then I'm going, and a little bit later, I think I had 2 at this point, 2 or 3 in the box. I go a little bit farther, and I pitch at this fish. It eats it, and because I hadn't seen an over in a while, and I'm like starting to get a little nervous. Well, I see this fish bites, and it's like a 3.8 pounder, and I'm just like and I'm sitting here looking at it, I'm like, okay, I said this is what I was gonna do. Yeah. Like, and a little backstory to this: I lost Angler of the Year in 2021. 21 or 22, the year Dewey won it the first time. I lost Angler of the Year to Dewey because I threw back a 17-inch fish on the Mississippi River. I was leading going in the final day, and I said nothing under 2 pounds was getting kept. And I threw back a 191. And that one fish ended up costing me 9 places, cost me 9 points, and I lost Angler of the Year by 5 points, right? So like that stuck with me. Like that was the most, and I'll do it 10 times out of 10. Like I made the right choice. It just didn't pan out. But like that's always in the back of your mind. So I catch this 3.8 pounder and I'm like, okay, like this is a good fish. And I'm doing the math on what I think my big was over 7 actually. It was like a 7.5 pounder. And I'm like, I'm doing the math and I'm like, I know, like, God, it's safety over, chancing it. And I always see Dewey doing it and it never works out for me. And I'm like, and I have it on video from the Palmer family. Like they were filming me and they're narrating. They're like, oh my gosh, like, what is he going to do? And then I'm sitting there and I go, nope. And I just threw it and I ran back up to the front of the boat and they're like, let's go. Like they're pumped. And I went probably about an hour and like the whole time I'm just like cussing myself out. I'm like, you stupid, like, God dang it. Like you're never going to catch another walleye again. Like you idiot. And it's like 10
Your
o'clock.
career's over.
And I'm like, oh, just drown yourself right now, you idiot. And all of a sudden I see a mark and it was in a tree. So I didn't see it that great. I just knew it was a decent fish. I pitch at it and the thing just turns and goes and just smokes me. And I get it up and it's like a 5.25, 5.5 pounder. And I'm like, good enough. And when I landed that, there was like 2 boats that got in this area that I was kind of working. And I think they realized like something was going on. And I'm like, that was $100,000 fish I just caught. And I just let out the biggest, like, let's go. I lost my voice for days after that. And I'm like, oh my God, like that just happened. And it was after that, I left. I went to another spot where I played defense the day before, and I roll back in there, and I needed 2 unders, like decent unders to do it. And in my mind, I'm like, I have to be perfect. Like I got it. You're taking on Goliath when you're trying to take down Dewey Helm, And so it's in the back of my mind. I'm like, I got to go for it. I'm throwing back good fish, and all of a sudden I catch a great one, and I land it, and then all of a sudden. No one to blame but myself, but all of a sudden, heat stroke starts to set in because like I wasn't drinking any water. Like I don't drink water when I'm out on the water. I'm overtired, dehydrated, and all of a sudden, like I start getting like this in the front of the boat, getting woozy. And Rob in the back, he's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yep, no, I'm good." I'm like, he's like, "We should go in, if you're not feeling good." I'm like, "Nope, we need one more. I need one more fish." Yeah. And I saw that fish and. I pitched in front of it. Fish comes up, clobbers it, and I set the hook, and I kind of like go like that because it's just like I had no strength left, and I reel it in, and it was that last under, and I just started going like this, like falling forward, like I was just out, like I don't remember, I was just so like dehydrated and like just passing out from sunstroke because it was 110, like legit temp 110. And I was like, all right, let's go in, Rob. And I got in and I got like ice cold water on me drinking. And I'm like, still didn't think I did enough to do it. I thought I was going to be short. And then, Dewey came in and he had an okay bag, like I think he had like 14 pounds or something of just unders. That guy was on the most insane unders. So if he caught a good one, I was screwed. But then, the young stud Bo Schilling just came up and put a master class on. Like that kid is like.
That guy's a hammer, huh?
Dude, absolute stick. Like he pulled in like I want to say he had like 19 pounds that day, and he almost caught me, and I was like, and he's such a good he helped me out so much on Hawaii when I was there earlier, and I told him I was like, listen, you're 18 years old, you can win 1 million of these, just let me have this one, please, and so he ended up taking second, to go 1, 2, and 3 with him and Dewey, and that was just like that was a really cool moment for me. I mean, that was such a huge moment in my career because that was like the award, the title I've been chasing. I've been so close, and then to do it, on a body of water that it was redemption for me. I messed up the last time I was there, and to do it against that class of anglers and to do it with Rob, who's one of my best friends. Like that was just such a awesome moment, and that was kind of like my take that because there was a lot, there's been a lot of big time talkers the last few years, on social media and stuff like that. And I'm not the type to get in a war of words on social media. I let my fishing do the talking. So it was like, there you go. You know what I mean? Like you can say what you want, but until you can beat me, you can't really talk, and that was that was me just kind of like my response from the last couple of years. And you know, there was just so many awesome, like behind the scenes storylines there that just made that tournament, you know, one I'll never forget.
No, that's awesome, man. The whole story, the pre-fishing, the motor blowing up, you know, all that stuff just leads into that. So it's awesome, man. That was a good one. That's why I wanted to cover it, you know, because I knew that, you know, there was a lot to that tournament. Not that there's not to other tournaments, but that one was big. So let's fast. So that was last year. Now we go into, you know, winter of 2025. And, you know, I live in Watertown, which, you know, and straight north of us is Ortley, which is where JB Snow Bear Rentals are. Junior, you know, Art is what his name is. He goes by Junior.
Dude.
Yeah. So I see that you're guiding for those guys for the ice season with Junior. And then you got, what's it like? I got to ask you, what's it like working with Cole and Gibb? I mean, Cole's a character, man.
Oh man. Cole's just you know, he's a bully. He's a bully. But we love him, you know. He's a special character, you know. No, Cole, I love Cole. I love messing with him, I love chirping him. You know, they're hell of a stick. You know, Gibby, he's our little special little buddy. You know, he's his own character. He's got a really hot mom and a hot sister. He hates when I tell people that. So don't tell him that he's got a hot mom or hot sister.
Yeah, because he won't see this.
No. We'll edit this part out. It's not gonna be a thing.
This live, the live broadcast. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, but no, it's, you know, it's such a great group of guys. You know, like I travel with Jack and Nick. You know, both great kids. You know, I've really kind of taken them under my wing and you know, kind of been showing them, you know, the fishing world, but to hang out with him, you know, those guys, you know, such great friends. And then, you know, our buddy Kev Ree, and Cole and Gibb, and then it's just such a tight knit group. You know, it's what fishing is all about, you know, good buddies.
They're characters, man. That's one thing. Like, so Cole's like, he's a character. He's just a character.
Yeah. You get him and Big T together and I'll tell you what, Cole is one of the funniest dudes when he wants to be. He is also the honoriest, grumpiest 24-year-old I've ever met. If you put a picture of Cole and Junior side by side, they're like spitting images of each other like 20 years apart.
Russ is in the back. So let's see if Russ can pull up that picture of, we got one. Look at that.
Yeah.
Dude, so that's
the dream team right there.
The dream team. Cole, they're just rocking. They're just rocking it out.
Number one, number two, you know.
Yeah.
Cole's a really good perch fisherman. He catches a lot of really nice perch. He gets mad if you get too close to him when he's catching perch because it's hard to get on fish like that. But
dude, yeah, I mean, look at that thing. Who doesn't want a bucket full of those bad boys in the Bear?
Yeah,
he's so serious too. Like
the sliv stalker, we call him. He's on him all the time.
The sliv stalker. Oh, that's good. Cole's gonna love this. Right on. So
no, honestly though, to be real with it, I mean, it's Junior is awesome, man. Like working for those guys and working for Junior. He is honestly one of the nicest guys. You know, if you get him pissed off or something, you know, he can be a little, you know, spiky, but genuinely, he is one of the greatest people. He takes care of me, takes care of his guys really, you know, well. And, you know, it's an awesome opportunity. You know, I wish I would have found it earlier in life. But like for me, I have a young family at home and, you know, it allows me to go and provide for them. But also, you know, he always takes care of them too. He's like, anytime I need off, you know, whatever I need for the family, he's right there. I mean, he would literally give the shirt off his back. Like I've seen that guy, and he'll never tell the story, but like, you know, this year on Bitter, you see some crazy stuff on Bitter. And, we had one of those crazy South Dakota storms. And it was scary. I mean, it was the scariest stuff I ever fished, and it was sub, you know, -30 whiteout conditions, 60-mile-an-hour winds. I mean, it was dangerous out there, and all the accesses were buried in, and people were getting buried. And Junior was going out in his vehicle, towing people out. There was one group that he drove out onto the lake, and because they called the gas station, they ran out of fuel for their machines and their heaters and generators and all that. Yeah. And so they're like, we don't know what to do. We can't get the 4-wheeler started, this, that, the other. And so Junior went out in the conditions, the terrible conditions, in his own personal rig, went out there, helped these people, brought them diesel, gasoline, all this out of their own, his own pocket. And then, some people, will take advantage of that, and he still goes out and does it. And he even had, one time where, he helped someone and he ended up damaging his vehicle, getting him out, smashed up his truck or whatever, just, trying to help someone, and it doesn't matter if he's going to break something of his own. Like, there was a couple times where, we performed, I was there to, pull some people out of the ice when it went down. If there was someone missing on bidder, we were out searching for him. Like, he cares about people so much. And
he does,
it's just a great boss to have. Like, I've worked for some outfitters that, like, I've seen both ends. Like, some of them I've worked with are awesome. And then some of them you're like, not a great boss. And so when you can find someone like that, that's genuine, that's just a great situation to be in, other than when Cole gets crabby, but that's okay. We deal with it.
Yeah. I mean, I've worked, so I work in the car business, full-time job, and we've sold Junior and his family a number of cars, and every interaction has just been awesome. I mean, they're just good people.
Chiselers from them.
What's that?
Sell doing some more trucks, so the boys have trucks to drive. We want like heated seats and stuff like that for those cold mornings.
We'll get you guys. I'll talk to Junior and get you guys all into brand new AT4s.
Heck yeah, dude! I like it.
Nah. So all right. So real briefly, we're running along here. That's all right. There's no like time limit on this, but I think we could talk for hours and hours about a lot of this stuff. But 2026, obviously, everybody's talked about the changes on the tour for 2027, having to qualify. I mean, there's a multitude of ways of having to qualify. I don't think we really need to go over that because everybody knows. I mean, obviously, your goal is more than just qualifying. You know what I'm saying? So
I don't even really know, because all I know is I need to do good, and if I don't do good, I don't get to fish. You know what I mean? Like, it's just I got to do good.
Yeah, for sure. So for this year, obviously full schedule, right? You just came off yesterday, the first MWC event. We're able to cash, right?
Yep. Got ourselves a plaque.
Yep. That was it was challenging. It looked like a lot of people. Was it 21 pounds won that or something?
No, it was 26. It was crazy. That was what the Bodingers did was I've never seen done like that before on that system, and they won by 6 pounds, which that again never really happens. My teammate took second, and even behind him, like the people that were doing two different things ran away with it, and then the people that were doing what everyone does, like that third place was so far behind. Like it was such a crazy bite.
Yeah, I followed it. I was just like, I was watching the weigh-in, and I was like, holy cow! I mean, there's a lot of really good sticks, that were in that, obviously, and it just goes to show you any tournament, you just don't know. It's still fishing at the end of the day, right?
Yeah, I mean, the thing I've always said about Spring Valley is that is, in my opinion, the hardest place in the country to win, because the people that fish that body of water, your locals. I've never been to a tournament where the locals dominate as hard as Spring Valley. You have, like the Dalzots that have been fishing it forever. Jaquettos, you got, Feldot Sander, the greatest fisherman I've ever met, Joe Perez, like JJ, like all these hammers that's the only thing they've ever fished their entire life, that they have 40. I mean, this tournament's been going on for 45 years. So you had these guys that have been doing it as long as they have. They know everything that this river is going to do, right? So to go there and to compete against that type of knowledge, like it, I told Jack and Nick, I'm like, you are going to get your face stomped in. I promise you. And you're going to hate it. It might be the worst bite you've ever seen, but you're going to learn more in a week here, watching other people, talking to other people, and doing it than you will anywhere else, because it is so technique driven, and you have to be spot on the spot, and it's so like out of your realm of what you normally do. It's a crazy place, and it's, to cash a check there is incredible. I mean, when we won there in 22 or 21 or whatever year we won, that still to this day is like my favorite accomplishment, because that is such a hard tournament to win, and not, someone, it takes a lot of skill and luck, but skill to win that tournament.
Yeah, for sure. Which tournament this year are you the most pumped for? Is there one that sticks out?
I would say a wahi or better. I'm pretty excited for bitter. Because here's the deal. The reason why I'm so excited for bitter is because so many of those god dang fish came up to my bait this winter and didn't eat, or would drive or swim right around me. And I told them, I said, you just wait until I get a jig and crawler in my hand and I can chase you. I will show you that I can catch you. Like I have a bone to pick with that. And then also Gibby and Cole are fishing that tournament. So I also would like to, because they are a lot better than me at ice fishing. And so I would like to return the favor come open water. But I would probably say that or Awahi, because Awahi is just incredible. For the size, I caught my PB out there last year. And there's a lot of techniques that I've learned in the last year, and that I learned over in Europe that I really think could play for those big fish. So I'm excited to try that, because that's just been something that's been on my mind, whether it works or not. Just to get out there and try and take second to Dewey Helm will just be awesome,
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of guys that are going to be in that, but one thing I didn't think about until I talked to this Daryl Peters is now with the changes in the NWT and having to qualify for 27, a lot of the guys out east that maybe would skip this tournament, right, are now going to have to come fish it, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Well, and it's like what you said too. It's like, you said today, this is the only chance I'll have to really fish an NWT for the guys that, aren't going to be able to go chase qualification now. This is their chance to say, I fished, because everyone wants to say, how great would it be to be like, hey, I played in an NFL game. Not saying like, but like in the sport, that NWT is that pinnacle, to be able to say that. So a lot of these are going to have, a lot more guys, hopefully.
Yeah. I mean, I thought I made the decision to do it before they made the rule changes, but hindsight's always 20/20, and I look back and go, I'm sure glad that I am, because again, had I not made the decision, it would have been a forced decision to fish it, and would I have been ready? You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah. Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. But that's cool.
I like it on one hand. Like I said, it's going to sound bad, but like I don't follow any of like the posting or anything, because there's just so much drama in fishing these days that I don't like it. I try and keep my personal life and my work life separate, right? So it's like I just don't follow a lot of it. And when they came out with those changes, it was like I looked into it, but I don't follow a lot of the hoopla and people talking about it, because I'm so sick of it, right? Like it's all I've seen for the last few years is just fishing drama. So it's I'm excited, I'm excited for it. I like it. I think it's going to trim out a lot of guys. And I really hope it's not me. I mean, you have to do it, now you have that, that ultimatum, like, hey, you have to catch them. You cannot just, because sometimes you'll take a layup, or like you swing for a grand slam and, you fall short and you're like, oh, well, that was a throwaway, whatever, who cares? Now there is actual consequences, and my thing is always, I wanted to be consistent. And it's going to reward the guys that are consistent. And then I think it's going to help bring the sport to, like, it's more of the NWT is something you got to qualify for. I've always said the MWC should be a feeder system, to bring in the guys that, because that's what I treated the MWC, the AIM. I always tell people, like, AIM, SWC, stuff like that. That's your lower, your state run, minor leagues in baseball. And then, you get the MWC, you're starting to get like that AA, AAA, and then the NWT, that's major leagues, and just kind of stepping your way up. And I like to see that.
Yeah. I mean, it absolutely makes sense that you should, at first I was like, oh, that sucks, because I won't be able to fish anything but this, this year. But at the same time, I get it, right? Like, it is the best of the best. You should have to qualify. It's just gonna to make. I think it's gonna make it better, but we'll see.
For sure.
We'll see what happens. All right. So in closing here, any words of wisdom for anyone out there that's watching, that any tips, anything little that you can share that you think would help anyone, whether it's mindset or actual on the water tips, or mindset when you're on the water, anything like that.
For me, like the thing I've always said is never stop learning, right? Like I found myself getting lazy at times, because you're like, oh, the only thing they're going to eat is a jig and crawler. Oh, they're always right here. You know what I mean? Like, it always be on the hunt to get better, right? No matter what. I don't care. I am so competitive, and I care how I do, whether it's a club tournament or a NWT, right?
Yeah.
The mindset is always just be locked in, right? Never, ever, ever, ever give up when it gets tough. You just got to keep putting your nose to the grindstone and just pushing through, put the work in, right?
Mm-hmm.
For me, like, I think a lot of it's like my military training. You're trained in boot camp that details matter, right? Like, and that's how I've always been. It always comes out wrong when I say this, but like, if you look at the top tier guys, like the super uber successful best walleye fishermen on the planet, the Dewey Helms, the John Hoyers, the Corey Springle, Isaac Lockett, all these like top end guys, even going, even further back, like, Keith Cavallas, God, there's so many names, right? My mind's skipping a beat, but like all those older generation of anglers that were there, right? The goats of the sport, they always have this like Rain Man level attention to detail, right? Like, it's like, you talk to, like Springle or Hoyer, like all those guys, like me and Hoyer and Dewey, we're friends, right? Like, I've known them. Springle, when I first started my career, after I won, he took me to dinner, and that was super cool. And he started teaching me a lot of the business, but like talking to him, on the fishing level, how analytical he gets. And like, that's where I learned a lot of it from. And that's where Isaac and I were great partners back in the day. I mean, we were unstoppable, because I've never met somebody that goes as in-depth detail. And that, like, pre-live scope, that's what you had to do to get good, right? Like, you had to have every factor figured out. Like Corey, always stories of him laying in bed, before a tournament when everyone's out talking, drinking beers, he's looking at current charts and water clarity levels, and like on these scientific websites and stuff like that. It's those guys that dive that deep in that are successful. And never be outworked. Like, that's basically the biggest thing. You put in the effort, and when you're on the water, always try to figure out the why. It's not, you don't need the spots, you don't need the bait. You want to figure out why that fish is doing that and learn the walleye to a scientific level, right? Like, know everything about that fish. And then like the last piece, honestly, is, I mean, there's a million things I could say, but be yourself in this industry. Like, I'm one of the most hated people. Like, I have more haters than probably anyone, but that's because I absolutely refuse to be anyone but myself. And people either love that, and I have the greatest fan base and the most loyal fan base, and I love every single one of them, and it's huge. But then I also have a group of idiots that I'm sure are in the comments that just want nothing better in life than just to try and tear me down, right? And everybody is going to have that. Everybody successful is going to have an idiot that is jealous, that hasn't done anything with their life, hasn't been successful at all. Instead of leveling themselves up, they're going to try and tear you down. So when that happens, instead of, like, you will never see me get into a comment war with someone on social media. I will laughing react at you because you're an idiot, first of all, but I will not waste my time to get into an argument with you because it is not worth the energy.
Yeah.
The energy is better well spent putting everything you have into fishing. That's why I'm loud and boisterous when I catch a big fish in a tournament, I let it out. It's my right back to you. Like, I'm going to go talk on the water. I'm going to show you that I am not what you say I am, and that I'm better than you at this. And I'm going to make myself better. I may not be better yet, but I will be. While you're sitting there on a computer, I'm going to make myself better. And if more people had that and just didn't listen to the idiots and let themselves tear them down. Like, dude, I got to the point in the industry at one point where I was going to quit. I'm at a point where I can talk about it now. I tried to kill myself because I was convinced, after all the death threats, hate, vandalism that I had, people showing up to my house, like all this crazy stuff that happened after all the drama. And I'm sure the link in the comments, what's his name, will post it. Like, when all that happened, the amount of stuff I got to a point where I was like, I am better off dead because I've had 70 people message me this. Let's give them what they want, right? I got to that point in my life, and it was realizing that and coming back from that, to this day, I will stand my ground and stand my business, because I will never let someone try and take that happiness. And people will try and take your happiness and tear you down in the industry, and you have to be stronger than them. You just have to keep going, put a positive. You can control what you can control, and only you are responsible for what you do. You're not responsible. You can't control what other people say or do.
Yeah.
You can only control yourself. So whatever they subtract from the world, you got to add 2 times as that. You know what I mean? And that's what's got me to this day. Like, will I ever be the most popular? Will I, no. And that's okay. I'm me. I like me, and I enjoy fishing. And the day that I don't enjoy the act of fishing, I despise the industry at times, and I despise the game. But I love to a core the fishing, the camaraderie that it brings. And the day I stop enjoying that, that's when I'll quit fishing. But until then, I'm going to deal with all the idiots. I'm going to deal with the people that don't want to see me succeed, because I want to see me succeed. And then that's what drives me. Though the people that are doing that to be the best they can be instead of trying to impress someone, those are the ones that are successful, in tournaments.
Yeah.
And it's all mindset.
Mindset. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think any high level athlete, that's what it is. It's between the ears. The difference between the guys that are really, really good and maybe even the guys that quit,
Yeah.
It's just all between the ears. Cause everybody at your level is a really good fisherman. They are, but some are just better because they're more focused. And just like you said, they just stay more on their mental game than anything. So, well,
and the tournaments come down to that one tiny decision. You know what I mean? You do one thing right that might, oh, I didn't retie my line after, I ran through that rock. Well, that could have been the 8-pounder that you caught. You know what I mean? It's those tiny decisions of mindset and staying sharp, and like you are chasing perfection. When you're doing that, the second laziness comes in, that's what kills, right? And that's in so many different things in life. And, that's what I learned early on. And that's the guys that are successful. Those are the ones that are meticulous. You know what I mean? Championships are won in the off season. It's won right now while you're sitting here listening to a podcast. You could be organizing jigs, checking, hook sharpness, replacing treble hook, stuff like that could lead to one more fish come season. It's a full-time job to be great at whatever you want to be. You just have to put the time in. I didn't start out who I am. You know what I mean? Like, I started out, I didn't know a dang thing. I suck. I still suck. Like, I tell myself that every tournament, you suck, you need to get better. Right. And it's just, it stacks, it started out with one plaque, right? It's one plaque that was like, okay, like, let's do that. And then it was just, it all stacks up, and, eventually it grows into something that you never would have thought would be possible.
Yeah. Heck yeah, man. Well, we're all excited to watch what happens for you this year, man. Looking forward to meet you. We've never met in person, so I'll be at both of those events that you're excited to fish. So we'll have to grab an NA beer or something.
Absolutely, man. That would be great. I'm looking forward to it.
Heck yeah. Thanks again for your time, Max.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me. I'll talk to you later.
Yeah, we'll talk to you later.